Thank you for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to give or to talk about digitalization in the tourism area. So this is my topic. I noticed that we have maybe 1 hour or 1 hour 15, and if you like, we can have a discussion. So I was taught that this is master students and researchers, so I'm not that sure how you're familiar with this topic and what is your pre-knowledge about that. So please give me a sign if I'm talking about stuff that you already know. I will skip it, otherwise I can point out maybe some question. So before I start, I think it's mandatory I should shortly explain where do I come from. So this is my university here. It's located in Bavaria, in the very south of Germany, and maybe you know this here a little bit better for touristic purpose. This is our most famous attraction. It's the Castle Neuschwanstein, and I always say this is the original. It's not made by Disney. We were first. So, and this is our campus. And if you love to learn more about Camp University, we were offering first time this year a summer school about data science. And for our Erasmus cooperation, it's free of charge if you, or not you, I mean the students of you in this month. So we have roughly 7,000 students, and we have a tourism faculty that's specialized in tourism management and a master program, and we have roughly 700 students doing the bachelor program and maybe 80 students doing the master program. So that's very in brief my location. So before we start in talking about digitalization or digital transformation or digital business models, I just collected some buzzwords, industry related, that are coming up all the time when we talk about these digital issues. And right now I'm just arriving from ITB in Berlin. Much talk was done about disruption, about UX, and about the digitalization of products and services. I think this is just one side of the medal, and the other side of the medal is for sure to ask what are the effects, the internal and external effects that are stimulating these processes. And maybe I can concentrate on two of these. One, this is just a very subjective selection of topics that are influencing digitalization. My impression on ITB this year was that a lot of discussions were done on artificial intelligence and big data. So many talks, I didn't know, maybe some of you were attending ITB as well, were questioning developments. What do we experience in the near future if we evaluate all the data? What can we do with the next generation about 5G network? Can we analyze real-time data and influence the customer journey of our tourists? We know a lot in the first phase before they actually decide or book something in the customer journey. And we know a lot about the reviews when they are back home, but when they are on trip, there's actually not that much data used for creating new services experience and maybe enhance the stay. So I think big data on the one hand side, so the collection of data and the usage and the evaluation of the data will be probably the next big topics to talk about. Another point is maybe this one, voice first, coming up in the talks. I mean, we're used to hear a mobile first now for 2 years. And due to the fact that Alexa, Echo, iHome, and all these devices are pushed in the market, speech as the natural way of communicating will be dominating more and more the way we get inspired. We will collect information and we will decide whether to go to different destination or use products. So this is just some buzzwords, and conclusion is I'd like to talk about these 4 topics. I would like to start and define the phenomenon of digitalization, because my impression is ask 2 people what is digitalization and get 4 answers. So maybe we can have a basic idea of what I'm understanding of digitalization. Second, I would like to talk a little bit about drivers of the digitalization, especially the general ones, and how to apply them to the tourism industry. Third, I'd like to talk a little bit about the customer journey and its implications. And last but not least, maybe we can have a little discussion about the challenges and opportunities. So, okay, let's get into the subject. I think Gartner, as one of the leading research institutes, had really good definition of digitalization, because they say it's the use of digital technologies to change a business model. So they have this combination of technological consequences on the business world, but they also say it's not only this impact about of the change, but it's also the process of changing itself. So I think these 2 sides of digitalization will give digitalization a good frame. For my understanding, I think it's not only to view digitalization as a special manifestation of a segment or an industry. I think we have also to point out that we have to talk about the specific consequences. The specific consequences on different functions of businesses, like marketing. What's actually dominating the discussion? A lot of people are talking about digital marketing and think this is the focus of digitalization. I think it's not. It's at least the organizational impacts are crucial as well, because people are working in a different way. Digital nomads, digital natives have a different perception of work 4.0, so it will also affect the digitalization of companies, and maybe the technological side as well. So as Wirtz is pointing out, it's really hard to specify this digital economy. There is no really a consistent meaning, so different shapes. So to sum it up, what is the consequence? I think we have to have a very holistic view of digitalization. This holistic approach should include a macroeconomic view and a microeconomic view. What is influenced by the market and what is influenced on the business side as well. And what is the aim? What is the final aim? And very often I talk to businesses and they say, we feel we are under pressure. We have to digitalize this or that business function. But the question is, why should you do so? What is the extra value for the customer? So what is the extra value for your organization? Could you improve effectiveness? Could you improve efficiency? Could you generate an extra value for your customer that is appreciated by the customer? So this should be the guideline if we manage digitalization. So to sum it up, this phenomenon, I try to collect some of the influencing factors. First, on the left-hand side here, the customer. So if we talk about phenomenon digitalization from the customer side, we have to think about touch points, digital touch points. We have to think about this new way of using information. So I sum it up with always on, a generation always on, 24 hours and wherever they are. I think we have to keep in mind that the way our clients and customers are becoming co-producers in the touristic value chain is very important. I think these effects like the net or the lock-in effect are very important. More and more, I think especially students are in a digital trusted environment like Instagram or their Facebook community, and the impact of the meanings and the attitudes of these trusted environments is really influencing in a very strong way their perception and their way to decide and think. So this lock-in effect is maybe one of the most crucial effects. On the other side, so behavior is changing. Yeah? So if we concentrate on the consumer side, I think it's the behavior that it's crucial. On the other side, we have a reaction of the businesses and the companies as a result of this changing behavior. They are changing their activities. So transforming activities is very important, and as I pointed out, increase productivity and effectiveness. And use certain strategies and techniques. I won't go in details in all these things, but to think and rethink about the business models. Is it still the best way to do so? Do we have to create a competency of change and innovation to stay innovative, to keep the competitiveness? How do we decrease our cost? I mean, that's the overall target of many businesses, and especially think about the transactional costs in order to use the positive effects of the digitalization. And as you see, I mean, it's like an arrow. These two things come together. And so we have to think about what is the impact on the market. Yeah? So what happens on the market? And first of all, I think we face so-called disruptive transformations. We see that new competitors are coming up. I was really overwhelmed what Google, Microsoft, and the big companies are doing on ITB. I would say their impact is even bigger than the traditional big two operators, and the innovation is coming from these external players of the tourism segment. So the competitors, the new competitors, is the one side of the medal, and the other side is how do macroeconomic structures are influenced by these players. We see some monopoly or duopoly structures in the market if we concentrate on the big players like Google. And I was in a discussion of tourist organizations, regional tourist organizations, and I say, what can we do to stay competitive in the next years, because we see that our traditional tasks and functions are not needed anymore. Clients don't need tourist organizations to organize their trips. It's done by Google, or it's done by apps or startups offering services. So they are kind of I would say, it's a kind of depression in some regional tourist organizations. What can we do? But the point is, are they really fit, and could they really stay in the market? Is it still time to transform? I'm not so sure. And maybe to speak about two other very important words. I mean, you all know probably this brilliant book, Rifkin, the Zero Marginal Cost Society, where he thinks about the way our society is working in this zero marginal cost society. And this thinking is, I think, strongly influencing traditional players like industry players like Siemens or Lufthansa. But I think in the tourism environment, it's still room for improvement, I would say, because the basic idea, what will it do with the way traditional players are acting in the market, this idea of marginal cost is not that present, I would say. Okay, to end this point, beside these market transactions, of course, for sure, we have the technological level, like a fundament, like a basement where all this happens. We have so many things that are influencing. It's hardware, it's software, it's software as a service, our new technological approaches like 5G. I mean, this will be really a huge step if we have these fast network. It's for sure the natural language processing, these NLP things, deep learning systems, what's already used by Amadeus, this big provider and solution of Amadeus. So technology will ongoing influence this transformational process. This has no absolute character, this chart. It's just, to give it a frame, this phenomenon, digitalization. So I would like to show you, if you don't know it, a very short video, because it's for me fascinating how technology could influence traditional industries. Maybe you heard about KUKA. Some of you heard about KUKA. KUKA is one of the big industry player producing robots for the automotive industry. And they had, this old traditional thinking, there is a robot, taking some spare parts and put it in the car. And now they have a new generation of robots, and they want to offer a promotional video what artificial intelligence could do. So let me try to activate this here. Is here sound? Is it in?
Can you click play? Did you click?
Yeah.
Did you click? Yeah. No sound?
Should be some. Oh, that's great. Thank you. So 3 minutes. I like this because 2-3 things are really expressed. What is actually the relationship between humans and robots? The human-robot interaction is probably the next big thing we have to talk about. And this is not only a segment-specific question for the tourism industry, it's maybe a basic question for all the industries. And second aspect, is it the imperfect human being that could compete with robots, and are they doing our jobs? And we have so many jobs in the tourism industry with repetitive and, let's say, easy conditions. Are they substituted completely by artificial intelligence or robots? And what happens with the jobs? I mean, you probably know these studies done by the Oxford Institute that till the year, I think, 2035, up to 50% of the jobs in specific areas get lost. So what we do with the people, huh? And last aspect, and that happens on ITB this year as well. You know, maybe Pepper, this robot Pepper, and we are expressing emotions to robots. People, they say, "Oh, this is a cute robot," and they were talking to Pepper. I think he or she, I don't know, or it will understand you. Obviously, it can't, but humans tend to speak to robots like it would be a child, I don't know. So many aspects that you can transform also in the tourism industry. But coming back to the second point, key drivers, what is really affecting our industry. So first of all, I would like to talk about some general topics and then transform it on the industry. And this is just a selection, and I decided to put technology, customer, and economy on the focus. So technology, yes, of course we have digital technologies, offering first of all a global infrastructure. So this will influence the way competition will take place. It's not a regional competition. It's if we offer global infrastructure, hence influence on people and organizations, also a globalized phenomenon. And the way we collaborate, we interact and communicate, I mentioned robots as well, is probably the main driver. Another driver, IoT, Internet of Things, and the connection with customers, the connection with other subjects and players in the market. When I flew with Iberia Express, I saw this new onboard service. You are connected to the airline system and don't need any additional devices. And last but not least, your human-robot collaboration. And we see it, if we talk later on about the tourism industry, hotels do it. Check-in situation with robots are in Japan already on. The cruise industry is using robots. The bots, the chatbots more or less are also mini robots that are interacting and interfering our sphere. And in this context, I like this chart here. Because very often if you talk to organizations, tourism organizations as well, and say, come on man, what happens next? I mean, we feel the pressure, so many things are changing, and I say, oh sorry, I think we are just here, and this will come. So maybe it's a little bit exaggerating, of course, yes, for sure. But I think the consequence is, if your organization isn't fit for change, for constant change, and if you don't understand change as the normal thing, it will be very hard for organizations to transform themselves. So second point was economy. So what happens in the economy? And there is often the saying that, yeah, we feel this shifting from the traditional to the service economy. And I would point out, this is not really a new thing that happens in the last 2 or 3 years. Pine and Gilmore, they pronounced this or they pointed out this accelerating shifting 20 years ago. So we are on a way of shifting, and this is not a phase with a start and a clear end. It's an ongoing process, this shifting. And the second point is that I mentioned it before, that we see so many new competitors in the market with huge economic power that are influencing our structures. And the so-called GAFA unicorns, so Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Apple, are known. Actually, it's not GAFA anymore, because the G for Google is not Google, it's alphabet, so it must be AFA, but everybody says GAFA and it will stay GAFA. So, but they put pressure on the traditional players. And let me skip the next point and coming back, I just have some numbers, it's from last year, to get the perception what we are talking about, what dimensions. I mean, we have triple-digit turnover numbers in millions, in billions, sorry, and this is a huge amount we are talking about. And the even more crucial part is if you check these share of EBIT in billions, you see they have margins of 27, Alphabet 26, Facebook even 44. And these big margins allow these companies that they can a lot of money and buy new small startups, new ideas, new strategic partners. And now we compare this picture to some traditional tourism players. I just picked the German tour operators, the big German tour operators like TUI, Thomas Cook, DER, and FTE. So if you remember, the billions, 200 and more, and now we have the biggest one, what's TUI, with 17 billion euros. And we have 8, 4, and then it's going in another dimension. And now if you check, they are not offering the numbers, the margins, but you see 2.3, 4.1 margin in turnover. So the capability and the potential of these traditional tourism actors to create change and to pick these new startups, it's on a completely different level when we go back and see these numbers and the amount of cash flow and money that could be invested. So coming back, so this is the point, new competitors, and the last point was the innovation competences. And my point is that in a time we have shorter product life cycles, we have an accelerating speed in developing new solutions. These 2 points are connecting. This innovation competence is probably the most important competence. It's not the sales and the marketing power, it's probably with the marketing understanding, the innovation capability. So what can we do? We can now come to the last point, customer. What's in general big influences on a customer level? I think demographic changes are pretty clear. We were talking about Generation Y, but so far it's the Generation Z that is coming, and they're again a little bit different than this Generation Y perception. And we just did a research on the requirements from Generation Y when they looking for a new employer. Their habits, their behavior, like work-life balance. They are not that focused on career, more flexibility, good working conditions, to have a nice crowd and the personal context. is influencing in general the way transformation will change. The next big thing, I think, is bring your own device. I just mentioned my example with Iberia Express. Just check in and get on board entertainment. It's a new way, and bring your own device is I think, meanwhile, a precondition in all businesses how to use the device of an employee, of a partner for the digital services. And the last point I'd like to talk about is what happens with us if we are influenced by this information 24/7. So overstimulation or sensory overload is, I think, a very new development. We have, maybe, I don't know how it works here, but we have more and more students that feel with 22, 25 stressed in a way that they can't really compete or work with these information overload. So I think the advantages created by digital transformation must be reflected in a very serious way in order to deal with these problems. So Generation Z, I mentioned this already. So if we take these three big points and transform it on the tourism industry and take the sector-specific perspective, what can we underline now? Technology, beside this general lines, I think in the tourism and leisure industry, we are very driven and influenced by the platform economy. So what does it mean? We have big players where you collect, aggregate, and provide big data in a way that also, again, these traditional players, are shaking. I just picked the recent numbers of platform offerings of Booking.com. They have offerings in nearly 129,000 destinations. That could be done by a traditional organization, 1.7 million hotel flats, and even more reviews. So platform aggregation means, by the end of the day, the impact and the influence of a single business will be diminished, and the platform and the intermediaries and the aggregators, they will have the power in the market. So second, I think it's the disruptive changes due to technology with traditional businesses. In the German market, we had for a long time a very high number of travel agencies. We have still 10,000 travel agencies. I think other markets, also the UK market, the Spanish market, they are much more transformed in a way that we'll see a sharp decline in this retailer structure. There are some studies for the future where we see that this disruption will put so many pressure on the retailing business that more or less this way of selling will be diminished. Yes, and last but not least, technology, if we applied it, artificial intelligence, we have right now so many new skills for Alexa. If you compare the numbers, 1.5 years ago it was, I think, 5. Then by the end of last year we had, I think, 100 and something skills tourism related in Alexa, and right now we are talking about thousands and more, and every day a new tourism skill is coming on the market. So these algorithm and the high spendings of IT and RE investments, AI investments of the big players like the two operators I mentioned and these Googles and Amazons will definitely lead to a situation where one of the big ones will fail. In this context, yes, I mentioned voice first on many speeches on ITB. Voice first, natural language processing was the key discussion. On the left hand, you see this projection of the change of desktop to mobile. What's obvious in all markets, this is the US markets, but basically the black numbers and the black part of the column is mobile, and you see this change that we have more mobile travel sales than sales with a desktop laptop is projected for 2021. I think it will be much faster. New studies are done that we will get this turning point in 2 to 3 years. Yeah, but staying in the technological side, what does it mean? If we see here a customer journey, inspiration, booking, preparation, airport, in-flight, arrival, destination, post-trip. This is just one way we could apply the idea of a customer journey. We see so many players interacting in this field. So it's pretty confusing. So I would like to sum it up. I think this part here is the new focus. What happens in this phase where actually the trip is ongoing? We know already a lot of things about pre-sales. What happens in inspiration and information. There is more or less a consolidation in the market, like Priceline, Expedia, Booking, the big ones. And we know a lot about, sharing, the last phase of the customer journey, with the reviews, and we have a consolidation in this thing as well. But this here, the red part, this is, I think, also the part where more research should be done to understand what happens in this on-trip phase with our clients, with our businesses, and with the market conditions. So the next point was travelers. What do we face with travelers? And I just want to point out two things. The first one is that travelers are becoming more and more segmented. And if we see the big phases in marketing from, let's say, mass marketing to one-to-one marketing, I think this heterogeneous situation will lead to the situation that future travel segments will becoming smaller and heterogeneous. And so to deal with this, I will show you this picture. Although it's 2 to 3 years old, I think it's still a very study done by Amadeus, and they say, what are the future travel tribes? Could we operate with these traditional things, families and dings? No, I think we can't. We have completely new segments like, the reward hunters, or those who we call ethical travelers. So completely new segments that are more orientated not social or behavioral aspects that will segment the travelers will be dominating the market. Coming back to this chart, the second thing I'd like to point out is in this digital transformation is the smart shoppers, or the so-called physicals. It's a combination between the physical world and the digital world. And I think this is really nice to think as a tourism actor, what can we do to merge the best of both worlds from the online and the offline world in order to create the best deal and the best convenience for our customers. And still we'll always have a physical experience in the tourism. So what can we do to merge these things and pick in advance the best things on these two sides? So this is it from the customer side, and the last point is the industry itself. If I transfer these ideas of these networks, I think we can still use these in a very positive way, because there is so much value unlocked by the digital transformation, and the value creation through more data and more knowledge was a big thing on ITB. UX was like a buzzword, and many companies are thinking, how can I use the data to unlock this potential? What can I do to create new value in order, and I take the second point, to create something what is time saving or gets more convenience or will lead to risk reduction for my clients before they actually book something or decide to book a travel or tourism package. I will skip the last point, regulation. So if you see, there is a nice study done by the World Economic Forum last year. It's called Digital Transformation Initiative in Aviation, Travel and Tourism Industry. And what I really like is that they were thinking about value drivers and costs in this scenery. And as you see here in this chart, if we take the value input of the digital transformation as a key, we can ask ourselves, what is the industry impact and what is the societal impact of these transformation processes. And you see, if we talk about societal impact, so that is in their understanding customer, environment and society, there are so many value drivers that are actually influenced or strongly driven by this digital transformation, and the others industry-related very strongly focused on traditional economical thinking in cost, in yield, in capacity, in efficiency, and other factors. I won't go in details, but this study is really well done and is, I think, visualizing this heterogeneous landscape of the impact of these factors. So let's talk now in the third point about the customer itself and like a real marketing approach, you know, start with the customer and what happens with him and her in the customer journey. So in this case, let's step back a little bit and ask ourselves, so what do we mean if we talk about customer journey? And I think the basic understanding is to have these three stages: pre-trip, trip, and post-trip. And what we know is that there's a lot of research done and good models existing in these pre-trip stages. We know the traditional neo-behavioral stimulus interventions and response models, where we have typically some stimuli that's observable, where we create attention in marketing. Then something happens, what's not directly observable, but interest and desire is somehow created. And what we already see, again, C is the reaction. So the booking and the call for action. And this AIDA model was good for 100 years right now. And due to this digital transformation, we have to add two more points. We have to add the search and we have to add the share. So we should create a new line. It's ASIDAS and not AIDA anymore. So what does it mean? What is the consequence? If I take now this new line, see das, what's actually not talking about the on-trip phase, there's a missing link, but we can apply now the logic transformation to this new line. And fascinating is we had these moments of truth in the service industry, and we were well familiar with the first moment of truth in terms of the action. If somebody is really booking a travel, is booking a package, is booking a flight, yes, obviously your marketing approach was well done because the first moment of truth will lead to success. Then we had the second moment of truth. If I buy a product and I use it, if I consume the product, I will evaluate again and say, okay, how was the flight? How was my business trip? Is it okay? So why we have the second moment of truth. So this is the traditional way of thinking. And due to the digital transformation, we have to add another moment of truth. And this other moment of truth, or the second moment of truth, the zero moment of truth, because it is from the timeline before actually, will become actually crucial. And that's not my invention, it's done by Google or a manager from Google. And they say, if you are going through this digital journey here as a customer or somebody who is looking for a touristic product, you will fail already here, because if you are inspired by a nice picture from Instagram, Facebook, or somewhere in the social media, and what's your reaction? You say, okay, let's check, let's Google a little bit. What is it? And if you are on this stage not really visible and convincing and using the power of the reviews, a customer or potential customer will skip, and he or she will not go through this stage. So the first and the second moment of truth are out. We have to be very competitive and convincing in this early stage. So this is actually one of the, I think, most important impacts of digital transformation on our way we understand the customer journey. So what does it mean if we take now a customer journey with different stages, because this is just related to the effects of marketing. I try to evaluate or develop a new customer journey. And my idea was to put these different stages like inspiration, so first searching, but very unspecific searching, then interest, really interest in a relevant set, building a preference, then book something, then you do the actual trip, and then you share. And we have to define a playing field where we recognize that these stages are in a more emotional or a more cognitive understanding. So what does it mean? If I'm very close to booking, if I'm very close to the first moment of truth, I'm strongly driven about price, maybe is it still available, can I use my favorite airport? So very hard facts, cognitive aspects are much more important than obviously when I get inspired. Because I like pictures, I like videos, I like emotional reviews where somebody just is posting a nice video of a hotel beach saying, the best sundowner in the world. So not really hard facts, but very emotional, activating elements. So, and I think we have to develop our understanding of the customer journey more and more in this way, where we have a flexible understanding of the way these stations are working and happen. So again, if we take this information, what I'm talking about before in the industry, we know already a lot about this phase. We know already about the 146 million reviews of booking and I guess everybody of us is using this service. But here, we need more insight. What really happens in the way, and how do these information flows interact, and what can we learn about user experience and activities in this? One thing what a new startup in my region is doing to analyze more data in the on-trip phase, it's Gyres. The company is called Gyres, and they are using real-time data, hotspot-based, to understand where do I get some congestion, where do I have traffic jams, where do I have a crowd, where do I have react. And this is, you see, these are two little lakes in my region in Bavaria, and we see each dot or each point here is a tourist. And you see in a real-time system, what can we do? Should we take some regulations on the streets? Should we close a park? What can we do in order to influence real-time the stage while tourists are traveling to different sites? So, finally, challenges and opportunities. So what should we do now with these insights? I think these challenges and opportunities, maybe we could sort them in these 3 dimensions. We could think digital transformation in terms of technology, organization, and marketing. And let me point out just 3 little things to these different dimensions. Digitalization in marketing terms, I think, should be discussed in 4 pillars. First one is the user experience. If we do digital transformation and if we include new solutions, we have to really focus on the question, is it an extra value for the customer? Is it accepted? Will it lead to a better service excellence? Will it lead to delightness? Or is it just a technical gadget or gimmick, like some wearables that are hardly pushed in the market, but in 1 or 2 years they are gone? Second, I think, what can we learn and do to even personalize more our solutions? So the one-to-one marketing understanding, maybe we can create a single solution for a single customer. And the more the providers know about my behavior in the digital world, the better is the potential to personalize the product. So personalization and customization is probably the key for market managers. Because personalization was pretty expensive 10 or 15 years ago, because man had to combine resources in a very costly manner, we have to use automation to support this personalization. Because, as we know, 0 marginal cost in marketing, if we have algorithm or bots that could create my personal experience, it is very cost effective to do so. We already use the automatic bidding system, where no marketing planner or the marketing manager with special knowledge is addressing the ads. It's a machine, it's an algorithm that displays the ads in my stream, in my Instagram account. So it's a completely automated system. So this must come together. And the last point is we have to talk about organizational readiness, I would call it, because we need different structures. We need a higher degree of freedom for our marketing managers. We have to have new working conditions to enable them to use this flexibility. In Germany, we had this traditional picture of the regional or authority. They were open from Monday to Friday. And Saturday and Sunday they were closed because this was, regulated. But if I want to create this digital experience and I use these digital touch points and I will create this physical, so the best of the physical and the digital world, I have to think about organizational readiness. What can I do to enable some local people to offer these solutions while customers are there on the weekend? Huh? Okay, second point is technology. I mentioned already Pepper. Last year Pepper was a great thing on ITB because there was just one Pepper. Huh? Today, I'm a little bit exaggerating, but every 10 meters you meet a Pepper. Huh? And Pepper is creating nice little videos. Pepper is asking you for your business card, so what's actually changed because you want to skip this analog thing. Pepper is, waving. Pepper is using his eyes. And I saw so many people who think, oh, this cute Pepper, and were touching Pepper on the head like a little child. So really crazy behavior. But the point is, I think there are big opportunities on the one hand side. Because I can use, in general, artificial intelligence to support high-quality services. Example in business travel, maybe you know the app Konichi, where you have this seamless travel and where you can open doors in hotels, do a pre-check-in before you travel. So these technologies can really reduce cost. There is a study done that you can save per business travel from the company approach 40 euro in administration. And the business traveler could save up to 15% of administration time. So it is an extra value. But on the other hand, we have only to talk about the connection between the existing touch points and these new touch points. Because a hotel without any human interaction will not be accepted by the majority of clients. So it has to be applied in a good way. Third point, organization. So how can we develop our organizations to keep up with these developments? And there is some studies and models developed in an area what is called the digital maturity or the digital maturity assessment. And the basic idea is that organizations who want to meet these challenges, sorry, this is not really good readable, but the basic idea is a company should reflect and evaluate its competencies in different stages. So this is unaware and this is completely transformed. So this is the beginner, I would say, and this is Google. So, and there is different stages to go through, and if I want to define and evaluate my position, I don't have, or I shouldn't focus only on marketing and technological aspects. I should take technology, the governance, my employees, the people, my operations, my services, my leadership, and my strategy. And all within these dimensions, I can, reflect myself and define my digital maturity status. And this should be like a status quo, the basic for the next level of performance in order to develop my organization. So, this is the last chart. Maybe we have some time for discussions. The question is how, when, and where will digital transformation change our traditional players that we know for years? And I just pointed out two little pictures. This is a picture of my region where hiking and biking and walking is still very popular, and we have also so-called offline vacation, and we have some little valleys where the hotels they try to make an advantage of a disadvantage because they have no net, so they say no Wi-Fi because this specific location. So they say, hey, that's great. Come to digital detox, no net, no influencing, no bad vibrations, just hiking. And the other extreme would be, we just started a little project about VR with the glasses. Somebody who used already VR for gaming here? Gaming, yeah? Okay, you, a marketing expert. You know the game Everest? Yeah. Maybe, yeah? And it's so fascinating for those who would like to try and experience in a virtual environment this game called Everest. You can climb up the Mount Everest in a way you couldn't really believe. You have some a controller in your hands, and while you are wearing these glasses, you will experience these controllers as hand gloves. And you take an ice pickle in your hand, and you can climb up a wall 400 meters. And although this is standing in a concrete on the floor, after 5 seconds, your brain will completely change and take you in this virtual world, and it's a so strong immersive effect. It's unbelievable. So a very provocant question is, will some traditional services substituted by this here? Where do we go, left or right? So this is maybe time for discussion. Thank you very much for your attention.